Hey, welcome back, knife nerds and everyday carry people. It's the Big Canucker here, and today we're going to have a look at some sharpening stones. Now, I've got a Reddit thread that I was on, and one of the fellows was a newbie to sharpening, and he was looking for what he needs to get as kind of maybe a start-off kit. This kit that I'm going to show you is not my only sharpening stuff, but it's a really good basic kit. It's something to get started off with, and as far as I'm concerned, this has done me very, very well. And other people's experiences may differ, but this is something here I'm gonna show you guys, and hopefully it has some relevance and it will help you guys out. Now, the majority of my sharpening stuff, the stuff that I really like, is I like these Spyderco Ceramic Stones. To me, these are absolutely wonderful, will last a lifetime stones. But they go from a medium, which is around 1,000 grit, to a fine, which is around, I'm going to say 1,500 grit. And then you've got here the ultra fine, which comes in two different sizes, which is around a 2,000 to maybe 2,500 grit. It's enough to give you the kind of the mirrored edge on it. So I'm going to kind of go through this stuff. I'm also going to go through a DMT 1,000 grit diamond stone that I have here too as well. And I'm also going to go with, a lot of people seem to really like this quite a bit, which is the King Dual Stone. It's a 1,000, 6,000 stone. And as far as I'm concerned, I think this is a fantastic stone for all your cutlery and all the chef's knives. That's my opinion. I think it's a great chef knives. And of course, you're going to want to finish it off with a strop. You can make your own strop. This happens to be a Knives Plus blocks strop, and it's fantastic. But my sharpening setup here is, let's start here with, I guess, the all-important heavy grit. You're going to want to start off with something that's very coarse. And to me, I've got a 200, 400. So you got your 200 on the bottom and you've got your 400 on this side. And this stone here, I happen to grab this over at like a Canadian Tire here in Canada. It cost me about $12. And in my sort of sharpening, what I like to do is, I think your low grit, your heavy stuff that you're going to want to, say, reprofile a blade. Now, this particular blade here has got some chips in it. Just at the end, they're very fine chips, so I probably wouldn't take this 400 to it unless I wanted to change the bevel. I think that's the only way you want to use this really coarse stone. As you can see, that it dishes out. Your coarse is for if something is extremely dull or you want to change the bevel. So if you want to lay your bevel back a little bit, you know what, you see it's the knife comes from factory with a 20-degree angle, but you want to lay it down to say a 17 or an 18. You want a little bit wider, a little more cutting power, and you want a wider bevel, then you use this real heavy grit stone to remove lots of steel. Now, it's been my experience, unless you're dealing with the DMT, the coarse diamond stones, any of these natural heavy coarse stones are going to wear away faster than the fine stuff. So that's why I seem to really like kind of the inexpensive steel. It's not your final edge by any stretch of the imagination, so the scratch pattern doesn't matter as much as the higher grit. So an inexpensive stone will work fine with you. Now, this stone here can be used with oil or water. I happen to like using water, not because I think it works any better. I think in a lot of these heavy grit stones, the oil works better, but I like the water because it's easier to clean up. And it's, it is easier to clean up, and it is not as messy. You know what, if I got some water here, it's a big deal. I can wipe it up, it's going to evaporate. Now, these stones here, a lot of times people will soak them before they go to sharpen them, and that's what I end up doing. If I'm going to do some heavy-duty sharpening, I'll soak this stone for 5 or 10 minutes till the bubbles come out of it. I'll set it. I've got myself a sharpening mat here that I'll place it on. And then I'll just go to town, sharpening it. And then I'll spray some water on it here and there. Once in a while, if it gets too loaded up, I'll give it a little bit of a wipe with a rag or paper towel, and I'll clean off the swarf on it. And like I said, these heavy grit stones, they start to dish quite a bit. As you can see here, you can see that it's starting to curl in a little bit. And you know what? That's all from just moving the center. So if I wanted to kind of even this out a little bit, I would use the entirety of the stone, or I can take this and, you know, people buy flattening stones, they buy stuff like that, but you know, especially if you're starting out, you don't need to go and buy a flattening stone to keep your stones flat. You can buy some cheap sandpaper, you know, 200-300 grit sandpaper, and just set it on a piece of something that's extremely flat, some glass. Heck, I've even seen some fellas take a concrete block or a sidewalk and just some water and just start rubbing on it. And all you're going to do is you're going to bring down the high spots. And a little trick for that is to get yourself a pencil and just draw hatch marks across your thing like this, and then give it a little bit of a rub, and then it'll show you where the high spots will disappear, and it'll show you where all your low spots were. And once you've got all the entire hatch marks here gone, you know that your stone is nice and flat. So that's a little bit of a heads up there. Now, so that's what I would start off with. It looks like it's got a 200 and a 400 grit on this. A lot of guys will go down to a 50, a 120, you know, a 200. I like the 2 and the 4-hand, the combo stones, and like I said, it's 12 bucks. Now, the other thing here that I got into is I like this kind of diamond stone here. Not too many times, if I'm hand sharpening, I'm going to change a bevel. I basically want it to sharpen. And the reason I like this, I was going to go with some real diamond stones. I was going to go with some DMT. This is a nice 3-inch by 8-inch stone. It's a great stone. It'll fit all sorts of steel. And with these diamond stones, they have a little bit of a break-in period. So they are quite gritty coming out of the box, but they will smooth out a little bit. And then they'll keep the same amount of grit for an awfully long time. And what I like about these is a lot of times this particular one here is not, this is an S35 VN steel. So it is, you know, fairly good steel, but you're starting to get some of that super steel out there that these natural stones will not cut. And all you'll be doing is just basically dishing out your stone in no time. You'll need some of these, with these super steels, you will need some diamond. So whether you use these diamond DMT stones, which are basically a steel plate, they're nice and heavy, or you've got the new ones that are like a diamond impregnated in sort of a stone, or a natural stone, or a slurry mixture that's pressed, and the diamonds, they wear away with the top of the stone like a natural stone. But like I said, the only time you really need some of these diamonds is it's a nice finish. It's a really, really toothy finish, especially on this 1000. But you're going to need this when you're dealing with the real heavy super steels. You know, Maximate is a steel that you'll need some diamond with, because the Maximate will chew through this natural stone like nothing. So that's one of the ones I really, really like. And this one here is just a little bit of water. You can use this dry if you want, or you can use a little bit of spray water like I do. And you can see that it's just a great stone. It gives you lots of room to cut with. So I'm going to use this probably diamond stone to take out some of the chips that I've got in the edge. And as you can see, just from those passes, she's bitey sharp. So these diamond stones, they work a wonder. They'll just chew through the steel really fast. And you can get some really high grits that do leave such a wonderful finish. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I absolutely love these Spyderco Ceramic Stones. To me, these are the ones that are going to last a lifetime. And there's lots of videos out there of people using these Spyderco Ceramic Stones to get absolutely hair whittling, tree topping type edges. You know, if you have some patience, that's what you need, is some patience and some technique and a steady hand, and these stones will last you an absolute lifetime. Now, these stones here are made of an alumina ceramic. They're made in the USA, and they're basically Spyderco's formula. They you know, they use a lot of heat and pressure, and you've got 3 different grits. Now, this particular this particular stone, I'm not sure if you can tell, I've used this, probably sharpened maybe 40 to 60 knives on it, and it is completely flat right out of the box. There's been no dishing on it, and that's what I like. It'll last an absolute lifetime. Now, one of the kind of the little bit of a knock on these ceramic stones is the fact that they kind of load up a little bit. So they'll cut like the dickens right away, but then they seem to load up and level out for a bit, and then you just hit them with some water, give them a wipe down. That takes the swarf off, and then you can keep on sharpening. Now these here come in these cases, and these two grits, the medium and the fine, come in a 2x8 inch, and they come with just a case. But I actually built this myself. It's just some drawer liner, and I take it and I place it on top, and then I place the stone on top, and it gives me the height to sharpen my my knife. Now these ones here, they don't need oil or water. You can use them absolutely dry, and when they do become loaded up, there's a couple of different ways you can clean them. Somebody says put them in a dishwasher. I tried it, doesn't seem to do a great job with that. What seems to do the best job is, to me, is just using a little bit of water as a lubricant and then wiping the stones frequently. That seems to keep them quite clean for a long time. The other thing is, if they do get dirty and loaded up, you can use what's called, say, a barkeeper's friend, which is a fine powder, or a some Comet in the barkeeper's friend with, like, say, a magic eraser, or even those little blue or red pot scrubbies. You just dump some powder on there with a tiny bit of water. Even your fingers, you can use it just to rub it in, and then you rinse it off with some hot water, and it just pulls the steel right out. Some people, they'll use a rust eraser. I've not done that, but I heard it works very, very well. Now, like I said, now the price-wise on these, if you look on the Spyderco website, they're about a $70 MSRP for these two and a $90 for this one, which is the ultra fine. But you can get them for, I'm going to say, somewhere around 50 bucks American, 40 or 50 bucks Canadian, 40 bucks American. So for a stone that's going to last an absolute lifetime, I think it's an absolute wonderful investment. Now, you don't need to go with the ultra fine. I think you could start your sharpening life out with just a $12 or $13 coarse stone, your medium stone here to start some of the scratch patterns out, and then your fine stone here to get your edge kind of topped up. And like I said, with this fine stone, you can still get some hair whittling, hair shaving, popping edges. And this one here is quite dirty. I've actually been sharpening some knives here. And then, of course, we've got the ultra fine here. And I took a little marker and I wrote along the side ultra fine, and I gave them edges, number 2 edge and number 1 edge. I just wanted to keep an eye on it, how they were going to wear. You know, I was using number 2 edge for a certain thing and number 1 edge for a certain thing, and different types of steels, and they are wearing absolutely the same, which means there is no wear whatsoever. Now, the other thing is, I had a look online, and I looked at, say, a gentleman by the name of Michael Christie, and who's an absolute sharpening whiz. Shout out to him. He sprayed a little bit of diamond spray on his ultra fine, and it gave a wicked edge on one of his knives, and I tried it myself. I sprayed a little bit of Hand American 1 micron diamond spray on here, and you can still feel it on there, and it just seems to really, really put that wicked bitey edge on it that as soon as you touch it, you know, it wants to ouch, it wants to cut. So now, if you want to have a look online here about some guys sharpening with these types of knives, Randy Johnson, there's a YouTube channel to have a look at. He goes through with the Spyderco had some very thin rods back in the day. I don't know where they are. I haven't seen them online, but he used a medium rod, a fine rod, and then his ultra fine is actually, there's a 3x8 inch version of this. And he used that along with just a Knives Plus Strop, and he has a 5-part sharpening system. If you want to learn how to sharpen by hand, that's something to have a look at. Randy Johnson sharpening system, and he was getting some hair popping edges. So now, you don't, like I said, you don't necessarily need this ultra fine. These two in a coarse over here will do you really, really well. But to me, I seem to like that quite a bit. And I also like this with the 1000 grit. I had planned on getting some finer grits and some coarser grits of the diamond, but you know what? Life happens and budget happens, so I'm only stuck with this right now. So I have been using this 1000 grit every once in a while, especially on some of my larger knives, my big chef's knives, and this 1000 grit DMT seems to work really, really well. So now those are the tremendous sharpening stones. Now you also can get this. A lot of people seem to really, really like this whetstone sharpening. Some people can get some really, really, really awesome edges with this king. No, this is a Japanese stone made in Japan. There's a couple of different levels of this Japanese stone. This one here is about 54 bucks on Amazon in Canada. And I can't remember what the States is, but there's also one here in Canadian that's around $35. It just doesn't seem to be the same type of quality from what I've read. It seems to break up, but they're both king stones, but there is two different qualities of king stones. So like I said, this one is the 1000 grit, and this is the 6000 grit. And I use this specifically for my kitchen knives. I've got some really, really nice Japanese kitchen knives, and that's what I use it for. I've tried using my regular knives with this, but it's two different sharpening techniques. So this particular sharpening technique on this with this 1000 and the 6000 is you put your pressure, you're going back and forth, but you put your pressure pulling back. With this particular stone, if you try to push in, and it's, you know, if you read some sharpening books, they say like you're almost trying to cut a very fine slice of the stone off. With this particular stone, you will cut the stone. It is that soft. And also with this particular stone, when you soak it and you start to sharpen using your kitchen knives, you start to develop a swarf on the top here, which is basically the stone is breaking down and the steel particles, they create like a little bit of a slurry on top, and you use that to sharpen, and it gives you that much of a finer edge. And then when you, especially you're going to polish it with a 6000, you know, you get a really, really fine slurry on here. It is a little bit tougher than the 1000, but it is still, you're still able to cut into it. Now, these stones require a whole lot more maintenance. They require a lot more flattening than the ceramic because they will dish out. So you want to use the entire bit of the stone. And the other thing too, as well, is you need to have that little bit of a slurry when you are sharpening with this particular stone. So if you're into that and you have lots of kitchen knives, if I know what I knew now, I probably wouldn't have got this stone. I would have stuck with the Spyderco stones because they still do a really good job with my chef's knives. But while I have it, I thought I will just completely use it for just my chef's knives. And it is kind of a different type of sharpening too as well. You know, you've got this, and yeah, a lot of people will use this on a rest on a bridge over top of their sink, and they'll have a little bit of water running on it to keep it moist. There is different stones like this stones here. They'll say you want to soak this for about 15 minutes before you use it. Some stones are called a splash and go, where you just splash the water on it and you're good to go. But this particular king stone is a soaking stone. And the 1000, 6000 grit seems to be a very, very popular set of grits. So I hope that helps you out here. I just use that simply for chef stones. And then the final thing I want to show you is you're going to want to have a really, really good strop. Now, whether you build yourself a strop or you get, say there's a strop man that's out there, there's Knives Plus, they sell some really, really good strops. There's a fella on YouTube, and I wish I could, there's two of them on YouTube that are absolutely sharpening whizzes. One does nothing but chef's knives, Japanese American fella, and he makes his own strops, and including horse hide, and he's a guy, and I apologize, I will try to find a link to Randy Johnson and these other two master sharpeners to give you guys an idea of some sharpening techniques, because I just want to kind of give you guys a breakdown of what works for me. You may want to go out there, investigate, and works for you. But you'll want to find yourself a really good strop. Green compound seems to be the most popular compound, but there is a black compound, which is like a really, really heavy compound that's kind of removes a little bit of steel. And then you go to white compound, and that is like a remove steel and a polish. And then you go to this green compound here, which is supposed to be basically strictly a polish. It removes ever such a fine amount of steel. And then you've got a red polish, or moving into your diamond sprays, and you're starting to deal with, you know, 1 micron, half a micron, quarter micron, tenth of a micron, or you're really working up to 100,000 grit. And it's, you know, way past where I think your Mr. Pocket Knife needs to be. But there's guys now with these best machines who want to get the lowest best score with their hand sharpening, so they want to maybe go down to a tenth of a micron. I found, for me, I really like the feel of a 1 micron diamond spray. It gives a really nice bitey feel, and I really love that. I still can treetop when I got it really well. So to me, I go green and I go 1 micron. So all right, well, I hope that that kind of give you an idea on these sharpening stones. So, you know, please, you know, thanks for stopping by. And if you like what you saw, please subscribe, and also give me a thumbs up. And remember to keep your stick on the ice, the shiny side up, and the pointy end away from your bits.